Hey, I just thought of a new business idea. I'm brimming with ideas this morning.
What's that, Rich?
Pillow Talk.
Pillow talk?
Yeah, it's a place where you go in, right?
Yeah.
And you have massive pillow fights to vent your frustration. Look, listen, I had the idea to do that whole take a sledgehammer and rip up. What's that place called?
Bash Club or something like that?
I had this idea years ago, and I'm like, why didn't I do this? Right? Just go out there and, well, what about a pillow fight? Pillow talk.
That could work, and you could rent pajamas to the participants.
Okay, now we're gonna go. You can. But just like
yeah.
they used to have these rock'em sock'em things with pillow, like on boxing gloves.
Yeah.
But they were sort of like Nerf.
Softer.
And you'd beat your heck out of each other with it. The reason I bring this up is the Baltimore mayor, Bernard Young, said that an unconventional approach to prevent gun violence was boxing. Get the boxing ring up and let them duke it out without guns.
Could work.
Listen, I don't think this is a bad idea. Like, even in our neighborhoods where we grew up, we always had gyms and boxing places, and it was a good way of venting things. I don't know if this is going to work. Well,
maybe
you shoot your opponent.
Maybe
What?
you could sell him a franchise to your pillow fight business.
Don't you think that would work better?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, but then my monthly debt-to-income ratio will be way off because I'd have to lay out some cash. Because we were talking about financial wellness, and the tenet out there that your debt-to-income ratio should be less than 36%. Now, well, that's true. But what is less than 36%? See, my monthly debt-to-income ratio is 15% because I live in a hole. It's really a target for me, though, that defines peace and flexibility. And everybody's different, right? So you have to figure out, are you able to define this ratio for you? That ratio, how you know you're there is you have what I call financial breathing room, right? It's a percentage that's going to generate some internal relief, some clear thinking, derived from what I call financial bandwidth, right? So in other words, I can go ahead, I can treat my daughter to a summer trip. If I want to buy a shirt, I can. I have a veterinary expense. Gosh knows, I have 3 dogs. There's always something. And let me tell you, the vet bills, boy, horrible. And we're all without the distress, right, of living paycheck to paycheck. So it's really based on how you're going to be handling a financial emergency. And that feeling of security has value. And it's worth more than some ratio a lender deems adequate to pile more debt onto your household balance sheet. The other thing is to focus on simple efforts. And I'm talking about really small stuff, but these small actions have big potential to get you on the path to financial wellness. And then, I listen to podcasts. I always bring this up. And I subscribe to Amazon Music. So I recently made the decision to cancel Sirius Radio subscription. I did it, Brent. $120 a year gone. All right. Now, that's not a big deal. It's not like, oh gosh, this is going to make or break me, $120 a year.
120 is a good rate too for Sirius.
Oh, I know, because I've been a customer for so long, right?
We
But they were like, why are you leaving?
we bought this used car, and they gave us 3 months of Sirius free. And then beat me up to renew.
Oh, well, my gosh, yes.
Can't do it,
See, that was your forging in financial wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want this bill, right? As opposed to, I do want to, want this.
I'd love to have it.
Oh, yeah, because you're a music freak. You you turned me on to Amazon Music, actually. But to me, that feeling of security means a lot of that $120. So it's the confidence that arises from being proactive. And what it'll do is it'll bolster your determination to remain vigilant about these little decisions. So you redirect discretionary cash into savings in lieu of spending. Like you were going to spend $50 and you decide, I really don't need this. And you redirect that $50 into your emergency reserve. You brown bag it at lunch. You maintain a budget. I've been maintaining budgets since I'm like 12. and I still do it the same way. I think my handwriting has not changed since I'm 12. I found an old budget of mine from when I was 12, and I'm like, shoo, looks like I just did that yesterday.
Who wrote this?
Yeah. And I say that today. Who wrote this? I have just about as much money today as I did when I was 12. And cutting out, now, the daily coffee habit, right? You can curb that. Now, I will tell you, and I mention this quite a bit, that's not going to budge the needle to build wealth. All this about stop latteing your way to financial misfortune, okay? Listen, that's not a big expense, but there's something that will generate these feelings of well-being because I'm making good financial decisions. It doesn't matter how small these decisions happen to be. They bolster my confidence. They make me feel better. And guess what I'm going to be able to do now? I'm going to be able to move on to bigger decisions. Cutting fixed expenses, the big stuff that's really going to make a difference. Like, for example, we have our financial guardrails at RIA. In other words, how much mortgage debt to take on, how much student loan debt to take on, how much personal debt to take on. These guardrails prevent you from going over the edge because we meet a lot of people who are house poor, okay? In other words, their mortgage is making, or their house payment is making up more and more of their income coming in some cases, close to 40%. How much financial bandwidth are you going to have? So having the next and best or the biggest home may not be the right thing for you. Actually, Gary Collins, who wrote the 2 books, The Simple Life and Getting Off the Grid, has some very important stuff to say about this, which I agree with, and I think you'll enjoy. But I would not want to be house poor. So we always say, okay, if I have to get a mortgage, of course, when you meet with your realtor, they're like, well, you make this much and you can afford this. And you have to really stick to your guns and say, no, this is my price range. And I know sometimes this is a very emotional purchase, but you've got to step back. Okay? So we always say no more than 2 years worth of salary as a mortgage. Okay? If I make $50,000 a year, I can have a $100,000 mortgage. And I got to put down at least 20%. In other words, certain rules that occur that we need to make sure you follow. So this financial wellness is absolutely achievable for you. It just takes thoughtfulness. It takes some discipline. Also, working with a financial partner, right, that can help you understand that. And that means that you have to move away a bit from the portfolio. It's not the beacon of everything. It's a part of a bigger thing, all right? So keep that in mind. And part of what you might want to do is, interestingly enough, a pet prenup. Listen, this is a real deal, Brent.
It's a thing.
Well, I mean, listen, if you got to be, your pets are part of your family.
Yeah.
Like, I'm taking the dog. It doesn't matter, right? So you both get a pet together, and now, okay, this pet's like a child to me. Like, what do I do now with this, right? And this is becoming a bigger and bigger thing. Now, it depends on what state you are, because pets are considered property in New York, for example. So they can put it in a prenup. But there are actually U.S. courts now that are starting to treat pet custody cases the way they treat child custody cases. So the court is going to consider the pet's well-being and happiness, which means the dog has to stay with me, rather than merely settling the issue of who owns the dog or who owns the cat, right? Now, and ways to do this. And I'll tell you, this is really important because you're going to find this more and more, especially, I will tell you, with Gen Zs, right? Younger people now, we are in a demographic slump. Nobody's having babies. Everybody's watching TV or playing video games or whatever the heck they're doing. But more important, nobody wants to have kids. I mean, in other words, we're in a baby dearth, okay, as far as demographics, which is not good for an economy, by the way. So pets are becoming more and more important to couples. And if couples do break up, I don't think they really look at, well, who takes the pet? So now you're going to have judges in the middle of this that are going to be faced with having to make a decision. Your involvement in vet visits. Who shops for the pet food? Play dates with other dogs. That's going to help your case, people. Okay? You need to be able to show the court that, hey, I'm taking little Bella. She's not doing much here. She doesn't even clean up the puppy wee-wee pads, okay? I mean, this is where we're going. This is a love for pets and putting time and effort into the energy of the health of the pet and the happiness of the pet, and a court's going to take notice. And I think you're going to see more and more cases. So you got to look at, obviously, each state's going to be different, because whether a pet's going to be property or not, whether you need a prenup or whether you need a pet nup. That's a pet nup. Why don't they just call it a pet nup? Okay, so Brent, I'm going to ask you one question real quick.
Yeah.
God forbid. I know you and the wife are like,
Yeah.
Where's Sophie go? So you're not going to be able to answer that.
We just won't split up.
We just that because staying together for the children.
Yes.
You know what?
Do it for the children.
I sort of get it. I sort of get it. Hey, it's so great being with you today. Tomorrow, with Danny Ratliff, will be here filling in for Lance on Financial Fitness Friday. I am Rich Rosso. Such a pleasure to be here with you. And you've been listening to The Lance Roberts Show on 700 KSCV, the voice of Texas. Stay tuned for Mr. Chris Alcedo coming up.
Monday, always Sunday, in the rich man's world. All the things I could do if I had a little money.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet. Sign up for Lance's newsletter now at lancerobertshow.com.